I'd like to share with you some experiences of what is going on today in health IT and why this is an incredibly exciting time to building new innovative health applications. You may not realize it, but there's a new standard emerging in healthcare IT called the Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources. Now, it's not brand new. It's been around since 2014. But only in the last few years has there been a real push to use it throughout the healthcare system. So I'd like to explain a little bit why it's being used in healthcare and what's catalyzing this next wave in healthcare application development. We'll talk about a few major use cases for FHIR, but I will also then pivot a little bit to show you that you could get started with FHIR right now. We've made it very easy to try and develop small applications with the InterSystems FHIR Accelerator Service, something that you could sign up for free and use in this hackathon. And I'll be giving you a brief demo of some of its features. I think you're going to really like it. So, a tsunami is sweeping over health IT, and it really can't be stopped. So, let's see how we can then harness this and why this is so important. What's changing in health IT is that we're moving quickly from on-premise applications to cloud-based services. This is a sea change affecting all of IT, but it's finally catching up with healthcare. We're moving from something that was event-centric, so for example, interface engines communicating with each other based on things like an admission event or a registration event, to being more query-driven and also being something that is outside of the hospital's four walls, opening up whole new application areas. We also are moving toward open APIs in healthcare. That has not been the case for years. So we've had a few standards in healthcare, such as HL7 v2, that were open. But for the most part, if you look at EMR APIs, they're quite closed. And so building applications on top of the EMR are very difficult to do. FHIR also creates an element of semantic interoperability lacking in the older standards, which are making it easier to build applications. Also, we're beginning to use more and more in healthcare modern RESTful interfaces. These interfaces are based mainly on JSON and XML and not HL7 v2. And we're using more web services and web requests that use HTTP and HTTPS, not TCP/IP. So what were some of the goals that led to the creation of FHIR applications? Well, there were many. There were a lot of disappointments with the fact that having all patients in an EMR didn't drive down costs and improve outcomes like they were expected to do. So FHIR was created to get better transparency into the cost and outcomes of care, create more competitive options for getting medical care, giving patients a much more convenient access to their medical records, and finally, for entrepreneurs and people who are interested in building new kinds of healthcare applications, creating a whole app economy for innovation and choice. And that's where I think we are today. The beginning of this is finally percolating into our health IT systems. We're getting a big push from the Office of the National Coordinator and the Center for Medicare Services. They issued about a year and a half ago what was called the Final Rule. And this Final Rule mandated that FHIR be used in healthcare data exchange, especially outside the hospital. So effectively, what this is doing is opening up APIs into your medical record that will be based on FHIR. With the patient's consent, then, you could get access to highly sensitive and important healthcare data through the FHIR standard. And here are just some of the clinical areas of that medical record that you could access through the U.S. Common Core or the U.S. CDI, allergies, clinical notes, goals, patient demographics, the patient's problems, vital signs, and many, many other areas. This is really giving health IT developers a wealth of information that they had no access to just a few years ago. All of this is transforming health IT. So we're going to have API certification based on open standards for the first time. We're going to have an open and competitive marketplace for health apps, something that never existed. And we're going to base all of this on FHIR-R4. So this is going to be very important to understand going forward if you want to enter health IT development. Here are just some of the use cases. You could tether your app to the EMR, improving patient engagement. You could create a mobile platform for connecting bioresearchers for those patients that consent to sharing their data. You could do remote access clinical decision support. And you could build patient mobile apps and toolkits using a standard called Smart on FHIR, which creates very intelligent applications that integrate into the electronic medical record. InterSystems has a deep commitment to FHIR. We've been actively involved in the evolution of the FHIR standard for years, and we offer in our products broad and deep support for the FHIR standards, including FHIR-R4 and the new standard to emerge, FHIR-R5. We also support Smart on FHIR, which is used in many types of FHIR applications. We make it easy to integrate legacy data by providing built-in transformations from legacy sources into FHIR. And we now offer the Iris FHIR Accelerator service to make it very easy and inexpensive for developers to get started. We're keeping the developer in mind by creating APIs that can allow them to understand and test FHIR. We know a lot of developers are new to the FHIR community, and by using API first driven development, using our Iris FHIR Accelerator development portal, they could get started very easily. The service provides a lot of things that would be difficult for a developer to create on their own and unnecessarily. So, for example, we provide all the infrastructure, high availability operating systems, servers, networks, all in the cloud for you to be able to use FHIR on a FHIR server on the back end. We take care of all the management, backups, disaster recovery, monitoring, and security, which is required by HIPAA by law. So these are important things you'd want to consider in building any healthcare application. Got a lot of great resources for you. You could create a free account for the accelerator by going to this website at portalliveisccloud.io. There you'll just register for a free account and you could get started right away. Also on the same site, you could access documentation to the service that goes into depth. So at this point, I'm going to give you a kind of a walkthrough and demo of the service, and finally you could write to me for questions. So again, welcome to the new wave in healthcare development, and let's show you some easy ways that you could on-ramp to using FHIR. I'm going to log in to my portal management account where you can obtain your own FHIR server. Here I'm entering my credentials and I'll log in here. Immediately you'll see your deployments. I only have one deployment here, so I'm going to click on it, and on the side panel you can see the various features. Notice that there are two endpoints, an API endpoint and OAuth 2 endpoints. So if we want to use the API endpoint, where we need to use an API key to access FHIR resources, we have to go and create some credentials.
so we can get that key. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a new API key. I'm just going to make it very simple here. I'm going to call it key number 4. I'm going to go ahead and add that key. You can see you have a one-time chance to get the key. You may want to copy it to a safe place. Then I'll close this up. Now I'm able to query the FHIR server from any kind of client tools. So here what I'm going to do is initially use Postman. Now remember that endpoint, we will need it, and I need to paste in the API key here to our authorization headers, and the key name is XAPI key. I'm going to go back here, make sure that I have the correct endpoint, because if I use the OAuth 2 endpoint, it will not work. And I'll go ahead and replace the part of the query. I'm going to query for all the patients on the FHIR server. So here I'm going to enter this REST request. I have my header set up. Now I'll hit send. And notice I get a nice 200 response. And you can see what I get back is a bundle. And there are a total of 26 patient resources in this bundle. Each patient resource has an entry. And then in JSON format, you could see the various FHIR fields. And you can learn more about this by reading the FHIR documentation on the FHIR website. But you could see I have all kinds of information about things like the identifier for the patient and the code systems used for that identifier, their names, prefixes, etc. So this is a very rich source of information. Now, admittedly, most people won't want to just use Postman. They'd like to use an application. And here I'll show you one that you could set up yourself. Again, I'm going to need that API key to use this application because I'm going to just make queries using the key. And in this application, you're going to set up this environment variable. And you're just going to paste that environment variable into XAPI key. Again, you have to download the repository, clone it, and put it on your local system. Now, this is an Angular application, so I'm going to fire it up with ng-serve, and it's just going to take a little bit of time, and we should have it up and running fairly quickly. So it's setting up the application now. It's building it. And in a few more seconds, it should be up. Now it's up. Now we could use our browser to fire up the application. So I'm just going to pull up a browser here, and I'm going to just type in HTTP localhost 4200, and I'm in the patient's menu. I'm sorry this went so fast. And you could see, I could see the patients now in a little bit more of a readable form, not using all that JSON expression. I can also get the observations for each patient. So, for example, maybe I want to get blood pressure, and I could see the components of blood pressure with this application. It's a very, very simple demo that you can then use and modify to your heart's content. One thing I'll show you here is that we could easily see our request if we use the Chrome development tools. And I just scroll down here, you're going to see in our header that the application is going to automatically add to the endpoint this X-API key. So what if I wanted to use this very securely using OAuth 2? This is a much more complex operation, but I've created a code repository for this as well. You could create your own authorization server. And here, this example shows creating one in Okta. I'm not going to go into all the details. There's a lot of work needed to do this, but all of it's very well explained in my GitHub repository, so that you could check this out if you're really interested in security. And essentially, I'll just show you this demo real quick. I'm not going to go into the details, but what you could do is log in, and it will redirect you to an Okta sign-in page. And you'll sign in, and basically you'll get back the same information. But in this case, there's a little bit of a difference. We're not using an API key anymore. It is actually requesting a bearer token. Now, bearer token has a lot of contained information in it. It's an encoded string. So if we go ahead and copy that string, it's going to be a little challenging sometimes using the Chrome development tools, but I'm going to try here. Bear with me. I'm going to take that bearer token, copy it, and now I'm going to head over to a website that's really marvelous. It's called JWT.io. And this is where I could take an encoded JWT token, like we have, and I can just paste it into this box. And what you'll see on the other side is the decoded token. And this shows all the claims of the token and the scopes. The scopes are really important for what the FHIR resource server will allow you to get from it. So there's a lot of information here. I don't have time to get into it, but you can learn more at my website. Now I just want to show you some basic overviews. We could get FHIR metrics, including the latencies of our requests, the average latencies, and the number of errors we get. We also have a nice development portal. And you can see for this portal, we need to go ahead and authorize it by putting in our API key. So take that same key that you had before, go ahead and authorize it, and close her up. This is nice because the portal really shows you all of the search parameters for any given query. So if we took that basic patient query where we're just going to get all the patients, I'm going to go say, yeah, let's try it out. I'm going to scroll down. This is showing all the basic search parameters you could use. I'm going to just execute this query. And you can see here are the values that would, if you did the query in curl or HTTP, you get this. But now you see I'm getting that bundle of 26 patients back. I could also take a look at the access log, and you can see I've made a lot of different requests using OAuth 2, some with the API key, and this helps in terms of understanding who accessed your server. I could go to data management. I could see how many resources I have on my server, how many patients are in the system currently. I could also change the deployment. We're not going to do that today, obviously, and make backups of the system so that, you know, if you have important data, you can easily back that up. There's a nice administrative panel. We're not going to really get into it here. And again, going back to my deployments, I just have this one. We'll log out. And, you know, that's a whirlwind tour, a lot to do, but a lot to, if you want to use FHIR, this is a great way to get started. I'm available for questions. Just feel free to write me. And again, I really enjoyed this presentation. I hope your career with medical information and FHIR will be very exciting. This is a great time to be building applications.